$10 million of value completely evaporated once we figured out that was there. We had to write all that off. So it was the cost of the investment plus the cost of the additional sales. Entire sales team had to go. We ended up letting go like development team members or redistributing to other teams. Like it got ugly, but it really started out with nobody managed that risk. It was just a guy that was in the right position and his dad, and they made it happen. So this whole lean startup model and the thing that Steve Blank talks about in terms of customer development is you prevent that risk by doing way more work up front in the research end to figure out whether I'm building the right thing, whether or not people are going to buy it. And these are the guys two most known for that part of the process. Designers, you're definitely going to recognize Johnny Ivy. Up until 2019, he was the head of design for Apple. Dieter Rams is more industrial design. A lot of the stuff that I've learned in terms of is just the aesthetics and why design works and why things should work, I probably have gleaned from Dieter. But these are two popular names in the field. And of course you recognize Steve. You may not recognize DHH. DHH built a language, a programming language called Ruby on Rails. For any guys that are developers in here, this is the guy that wrote Ruby on Rails. But he also built a company, which is a project management company, still privately held, very successful. It's been 15 to 20 years. They've been just killing it out there. But very rarely do you find a programmer that built his own language for the application that he was building. So he's very well known in the space as just being the guy in that area as a builder. All right, questions. You as a product manager, just based on what we've learned so far, here are your choices. What do you think you do? Well, I mean, this is you're the leader. So each one of you guys are product managers right now. The CEO has given you this directive. You got your team together. What's the first thing you do? Everyone think brainstorm? That's consensus?
Talk to your customers.
Perfect.
That's the first thing.
Perfect. The answer is actually C. Talk to your current customers. And again, this is the and it's human nature. So it's not that it's anybody's fault. It's our egos. There are going to be times and valuable points for brainstorming in your career, 100%. But think about it. You are taking someone else's check, and they already have current customers. The best source of information and value that you can create is going to be in that customer, that current customer. They're already buying from you. So everything that you build will be an extension of that. It's an opportunity that you can't pass up. Going somewhere to brainstorm is just your idea, but you aren't doing their jobs. You aren't living in their worlds. You don't have their same perspective. So why would you start with yourself instead of starting with them? All right. Eric Reeves, and this is a key thing. Jobs used to say this a lot as well. I have times that I disagree with it, but I understand it. As you get better at interviewing customers and talking to customers, because you're going to hear people say this all the time, customers do not want what they want. And in reality, they don't. But you aren't supposed to ask them what they want. Really what you're trying to do is observe what their job entails, what kind of problems they're having, get feedback on whether or not those problems are relevant, whether they are things that they are willing to, pay for. I think Henry Ford had this quote, if he asked people what they would have wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? He invented the car, right? So it's like, I get your point, but your customers aren't supposed to see the future. Your customers are supposed to help translate what their problems are into your language so you can see the future. All right. So new product stacks. I'm going to make a lot of people unhappy now because again, we're taking the ego out of this in order to get better, right? New product stacks. Most products fail miserably. Period. period. I know you think your ideas are going to be awesome, and they may be, but statistically speaking, 95% of all products fail. So what you need to get your mind wrapped around is A, this may not work, and I may need to work harder, or B, I may have to go through a couple iterations in order to win. You know what I mean? And that's what they call a pivot. You'll hear people talk about pivots. It's we start here. It's not necessarily going the way we want to, but we talk to a customer that we're willing to pay for us for this. All right, let's build this. And now you've pivoted from what you originally thought was your business idea into another idea that may necessarily work. And that whole startup model being about finding that product, that's really what you're talking about. It's spending the time to talk to the customer, to iterate, to build around what they need, and recognizing that that is going to change always. And when you start talking to startups, 90% of startups fail. The way I'm approaching this presentation, I am intentionally putting our model of here's our story as an internal product manager right up next to you being a founder, because effectively it's the same thing. The titles are different. The resources are different because you may be bootstrapping it out of your pocket versus having a check. But in terms of the processes of identifying customers, figuring out what their needs are, figuring out whether they're willing to buy it, exact same job. So in my mind, a startup founder and a product manager is interchangeable. Anybody got any questions? Awesome. So this is what I was trying to explain earlier. And I think you guys are new at this and don't recognize exactly like how valuable this can be for you, but internalize this. Think about this a little bit now. Because most of your careers, you are going to run into situations that either the company you're at failed or the opportunity you're working at failed because people had a very firm idea how this is supposed to work. And they don't change. They don't think about it. They don't adapt. Early in my career, I did a lot of just small business consulting. And it was amazing to me how many people started out with a business plan. Never talked to a customer, never found anybody that was willing to buy this, but they would come to you with a 26-page business plan ready to send off to the loan guy or to write a grant for it when you haven't even sold your first customer. Like, I don't even understand what we're doing here. But I think for whatever reason, that's what we teach people. We teach people that you need a business plan. No, you need to do some good research. You need to figure out what this should look like for you. And this is why. Why do startups fail? If you look at the number one, 42%, and again, this research study, and all of the stats are going to have, there's notes inside of the PDF, inside of the deck, which you guys will have access to. So you'll be able to kind of research a lot of this. But the CBI Insights report that this created, one of the things that the authors identified is that there was a crap ton of overlap between these categories. So it wasn't just like, all right, I failed because there was no market need. It was usually there was no market need and I ran out of cash, or I got burned out and I didn't have the right team. So there's no one reason why a company would fail, but recognizing that no market need one is 42% of all failures, also recognizing that 90% of all business fail is why this customer development piece is so important and why we're here today. That's what you're trying to fix. All right, so this is the old school model. And it is interesting because it actually used to work that like this in a lot of places in Silicon Valley. It was especially like year 2000 when I guess, I don't know how old you guys are, but I guess the first internet bubble. Guys would literally sit at tables and draw business models on a napkin and give it to a venture capitalist and like, let's do it, and write a check. And we all know that those companies failed. That's what the internet bubble of 2000 was. But it literally was just this, it was a crap ton of money looking for an opportunity and a lot of people just coming up with ideas. You know what? Hey, I think we should sell pets online. Like, really? Like, that's what we're going to do? Done. But these 4 stages were like really important stages at that point. Like you sit down, that whole concept, you got the concept and the check before you even started developing anything. And then the next stage was the product development. This is when the engineers start building stuff. They start coming, the business plans start getting finalized. Marketing team start promoting. Again, you don't even have a product yet, but the marketing team is ready to go because the marketing team is always ready to rumble. You start testing it. We're ready to get it out. Marketing team already has your plan together. They're dealing out like sales materials. You got all this cool collateral. You got your logo shirts. You're ready to roll. And then you launch and it falls absolutely flat. Nobody sells. Nobody buys anything. And you just burn through, $1.2 million, $1.5 million just on a hunch. That has happened so often in so many businesses. It's gotten a lot better over the last 10 or 15 years, but during that time, if you had a good conversation and you knew the right people, this could be you. All right. The key thing that I want to kind of point out here, and this is the exact same 4 slides that we saw before, but I want to kind of put it in a grid format. Your teams are the other people that are engaged with you while you're working on this. So if you are a founder, it's probably just you and some friends. But if you're inside a company as a product manager related to the story, you're going to have a marketing team, you're going to have a sales team, you're going to have your business development people, and you have your engineering. Each one of them as a product manager, you are feeding them information, getting them updated, but they are taking that information and they are running forward to do their own thing with it. So by the time you get to launch, again, if you are managing or someone is managing this thing effectively, everything is in place from a project management standpoint. All the tasks are completed and people are ready to roll, but you've forgotten about your customers and you don't even know whether or not this thing is going to sell. So if you think back to that piece of it and you're looking at this model, let's go back to this model. And by model, I mean the little grid at the top, the flow chart. What do you think is really wrong with that, based on what we said so far? Perfect. Skip the step completely. It's not even on the chart. My idea is awesome. Write me a check, and we're going to make money. All right. So the 2 biggest things, and there are a lot of things that we're going to kind of talk about specifically, but the 2 biggest things are, it assumes that the customer problem is known. I need to correct that. And it assumes that the engineering solution is known. 2 most important thing is the problem space and the solution space. I don't know if you guys heard that phrase before. Problem space is the customer's problem. The solution space is how an engineer goes about solving it. If you don't have a connection between those 2 things, you got a problem. That'll be the first problem. You can't connect those dots. And very often you will run into instances where, again, the product that we end up shutting down, the $10 million product we end up shutting down, one of the things that was a major gap was we were selling to customers the idea that we'd bring this laptop to their IT environment, plug it in, we digest all this information, and then spit out this cool report that would help, the customer understand what types of information was available and what they were at risk for, right? The problem is it never would work on a laptop. So it was designed to fit inside somebody's server room that they would install on a server. But what we were selling was that I was bringing you this laptop. Disconnect. And because these groups are operating in silos, no one recognized that, all right, well, the client is saying, hey, well, let me see the laptop. And it's like, oh, well, I got to get my guys to install it. And just so you know, it's better now with the cloud, but back before the cloud, any sale that started with, I need to get my IT guys involved, died immediately. Immediately. The process around getting IT that doesn't know you to approve or test a product that would destabilize an environment that they get paid to keep stable meant that they were going to throw every possible obstacle at you to keep it from getting sold. So that just didn't happen. All right. So we talked about this, talking to customers. I'm leaving those as kind of a part of the leave behind. All right, so to fix this, Steve Blank and others came up with this customer development model. And a lot of this, we'll talk about agile or agility later on, but a lot of this is developed around this whole concept of agility. What happens with a lot of businesses, I want to say most businesses, especially the larger they get, is you lose the ability to evolve. You lose the ability to adapt. And it's rational. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. Clayton Christensen wrote a book about it. But it is basically, if you are doing the business correctly and you're profitable, you're going to keep reiterating on that process. You're going to keep doing it again and again and again. As long as that engine is making you money, you're not going to touch that engine. But what happens is a small guy like someone in this room builds a company, comes in and disrupts you because you aren't paying attention. You focused on your lane like you're supposed to, and then someone comes in from the side and they build something else and it kills your entire market, right? So many companies have fallen. Kodak is the one most used in business examples. Kodak had the IP for digital phones before anybody. Digital cameras before anybody. And for whatever reason, they wanted to stick to film, right? Because it was so profitable for them. They had the IP, they developed it, they were done. They could have went really hard and made sure, like the iPhone that you're holding technically could have been a Kodak phone, right? Because they had all the technology. But they were making so much money off this idea that you were going to go take a picture, get that picture developed, and then those pictures would come back to you, hold them and put them in your photo. They were so tied to that approach that they literally killed it and shelved it, ran them off. The other one that comes to mind is Blockbuster. I don't know if you guys were around for Blockbuster, but there was that point. Then everything went through Blockbuster. Like I remember owing them $37 for 2 months off late fees. They didn't see Netflix coming at all. It's just the idea, and it wasn't even just Netflix that hit them first. They got hit with, I guess, the local CD place. What's the one that's like the kiosk in front of the grocery store? They got hit by Redbox first, and then they dodged Redbox like they're not worried about it too big. And then next thing you know, Netflix just slid in right behind them, killed them. But it's because, it's easy for us to call them dumb, but there is no rational reason if you are winning and you're successful and you are profitable for you to think that any of these small startups can beat you. There's no rational reason for you to believe that. You're multi-billion-dollar business. I'm not worried about some rinky-dink dude with a vending machine in front of the store. Get out of here. But this is a lot of what we're talking about today is prevent you from that. But really, that whole concept of agility is corporations trying to learn from those losses that, we need to figure out how to be a little more nimble. We need to figure out how to take these useful ideas and these useful perspectives and incorporate them into how we're already winning. And the easiest way to do that is to be able to iterate quickly. So what they would traditionally happen when you built software, they had the waterfall process. I don't know if you guys learned about this. So the waterfall process was, I spend 9 months writing requirement documents. This needs to do this. It needs to have this color. It needs to be this button. I need the screen to look like this. When you press the button, I need to do this. I would spend 9 months writing this thing, and then I would hand it over to your systems engineer, and your system engineer would turn that into a bunch of tasks for his development team, which would take another 6 months, and then they would start building it and take another 6 to 9 months. And now 2 years in before you get the first product, and the client has changed his mind. Dude, I don't even need that. What are we doing? But that was everybody's model. It was the waterfall model. So what we've quickly moved to, at least over the last 10 years or so, is this whole concept of agility. A lot of the software development models and the management models, and in some cases even the marketing models, are wrapped around this whole idea that we need to just move as quickly as possible. So instead of me putting together a 3-year development plan, I'm going to put together 2-week sprints. And I think I heard you use the word sprint earlier. That's where it comes from. That whole concept was, all right, we got to stop doing this whole waterfall deal. Let me figure out how quickly I can do this. Usually a sprint is 2 weeks, sometimes a week, depending on the team. But the idea that we're going to talk about it every day, I'm going to have a deliverable in a week, and then we're going to have another set of deliverables in the next 2 weeks, is us moving closer to being able to provide value to the customer quickly and being able to get that feedback quickly versus taking this long, expensive process that usually ends up in failure. So that's what agility means, and customer development is kind of wrapped around that. But it's the idea that you are going out, you're talking to people, you're getting feedback, and you come back to them like, hey, this is what I built. Let me know your thoughts on it. But you are consistently spending time working with that customer. I promise you, I think I'm skipping them. You're consistently working with your customer. All right, so this is the model. When I start talking about iteration, we are talking customer discovery and customer validation. In that process is us building something that's valuable to that customer if we've identified a need, right? But a lot of that and a heavy part of that is this customer discovery piece. I'm going to make a broad statement, and I am saying this having experience as a full stack developer and as being in products for a number of years. This customer discovery situation is way harder than writing code. It's orders of magnitude harder. And it's intentional. Again, if I give an engineer a problem set, that engineer can build me something because I have taken the time to give him a problem set. I've distilled, I need X, can you build X, and it does this, right? The customer development discovery process is, all right, well, what do you need? You know what I mean? Like getting that connection from, all right, well, does it do this or should it do that? Do you even need that? Do you need a button? Should it be an app? You know what I mean? Like figuring all that piece of it out is because you're dealing with human beings, the complexity of, are they just telling you what you want to hear? Have you spoken to the right person? Have you spent enough time with it? You know, is she just agreeing with me because she's my mom, or does she really need this? Like these are, it's a more difficult process, which is I am always a fan of pulling your engineers into that process with you, recognizing that you know, this may not be their thing. They need to see it. And the real world example I'll give of this is I once had a team that was developing a what was supposed to be a simple app for a client. And I talked to the client and she walked me through the process of what she needed to get done on a daily basis through our application. And I counted 17 clicks for her to get this one report out. 17 clicks. And she bitched about it the entire time. Like, because this is her day. Like, I got 1,000 things to do. I need this report. Now I got to go through this 17 clicks. So I took that to the engineering team. And again, I assume they understood. I assume that they had empathy for the customer, not recognizing they hadn't spent any time with the customer. And I laid out, like, this is 17 clicks. Like, what can we do about this? And the senior engineer on the team's response to me was, I guess we should put more money into training. And I immediately got upset, immediately. But it took me some time to recognize that from her standpoint, away from the client, being disengaged, not having any empathy for anything outside of the problem set, that is a perfect response. Like, just train them how to use what I built. What I built is awesome. But what they didn't have was watching that customer's face and how angry she was having to press these 17 buttons every day. What should have been a canned report that she could press one button, or if you're awesome, you automate it and it just shows up in her mailbox. That's what we should have done, but that's not what he received as a problem set. His user story was build this thing. And he was like, all right, well, I want it here on the interface, because they didn't have a product management team. I hadn't come on board yet. So the engineers was just slapping things on the UI wherever they wanted to. You know what I mean? And he just, all right. So it's not anybody's fault, but as you are developing your skills, both in leadership and in engineering, and in going in these areas and trying to build stuff, it is super important that you bring the people that are building. Even if it's you, you're going to have to develop a skill. If you're bringing someone on your team, then recognize that they need to be included on this stuff, because if they don't have empathy for the user's problem or the customer's problems, you're going to have a crappy product. And it's not even their fault. Any questions about this model? The customer creation piece is actually business scaling. We'll talk about that, and then company building. So once we've identified that we know what to build, we've built something, and we have a sales process, and this is super important, and we have a sales process that is designed and effective at repeating sales, then we go to the customer creation point. But never before then. You shouldn't be scaling something if you can't figure out how to sell it. I have watched that mistake happen oh so many times. We start buying servers before we have finished the website. And if you can't get a customer to purchase it, how are you going to fund this growth? That's not a business decision, at least not as a good one. This process focuses on the business model. The background on the business model is you're going to be hearing about this a lot as we go through this. It's the important piece. Unless you were building something for fun, or this is just you kind of hanging out, and engineers have hobby projects. I got a couple myself. But if you were trying to sell this to someone, the most important piece is the business model, because if you can't figure out something of value that someone is willing to give you money for, then you don't have a business. And this whole process, it doesn't matter how cool your apps are. If you want to spend some time on figuring out